This video is brought to you by channel partner 4 years running Squarespace. They just refreshed their already industry-leading website creation toolset, making it easier than ever before to build the perfect website for your business, your project, or just for fun. They're offering a special discount to viewers of this channel, so stick around to the end of the video to learn more. Last week in my Nintendo Switch 2 preview, I lamented that the console didn't have much of that Nintendo weirdness that we all love, and that weirdness would have to come through the games. Well, it's arrived, because let me tell you, Donkey Kong Bananza is pretty weird, and when set against the rather safe and iterative Mario Kart world, Bananza reminds us that Nintendo is never afraid to reimagine a character, a franchise, or even an entire genre. So some background to this, I was invited by Nintendo to attend a preview event in Sydney. I got to play 4 uninterrupted hours of Donkey Kong Bananza, checking out 3 separate zones or layers, but we'll get into that later. I played solo most of the time, but toward the end I did play some co-op because yes, Donkey Kong Bananza supports co-op in a very surprising way that's going to be absolutely perfect for kids, though I'm not sure how much adults might enjoy this fairly limited co-op format. But again, we'll talk about that later. This is a Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive. It's out on the 17th of July. Nintendo did also confirm that Bananza comes from the same studio that did Mario Odyssey. There is a rumor floating around that this comes from a separate team within that studio, as that studio is currently working on a mainline Mario game. And yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense. Obviously, Nintendo has been working on a Mario game for some time now, and given the success of Odyssey, it's likely to be the same studio, in which case, if Bananza is from that studio, then yeah, it's probably from a different team. But of course, that is all speculation. I have no concrete information other than the fact that Nintendo did confirm that Bananza comes from the Mario Odyssey studio. Alright, so what the hell is Donkey Kong Bananza? Seeing it for the first time and playing it for the first time, I was like, is this a platformer? Is it an adventure game? Is it a sandbox game? There's so much going on so quickly that Bananza can feel a little overwhelming. It's only when you settle into it that you start to realize that actually, this is pretty familiar territory, at least when it comes to its overall structure and genre. This is a very classically inspired 3D platformer. You are dropped onto a number of different maps that each have a distinct theme with tools and mechanics and enemies all aligned to that theme, and you then need to collect stuff littered throughout the map. The main thing you are collecting, your golden stars if you will, are bananas, because Donkey Kong is an ape, and apes like bananas, okay? And it's satisfying because every time you get a banana, Donkey Kong says, "Oh, banana." And that is how you know you got a banana, because he said banana. Anyway, these are hidden throughout the level in various places, and finding them ticks them off a list, and also gives you skill points to put into a skill tree, because I guess that's the thing that platformers have in 2025. The skill tree is a mix of passive and active upgrades. For example, one node allows you to smash through certain types of rock more quickly, while another node gives you an all-new spinning attack, that sort of thing. But in addition to the bananas, you are collecting a bunch of other stuff too. There's these fossil things scattered about, often hidden deep within layers of rock. There are these special fossilized skulls that are super rare. There are red balloons that serve as extra lives should you fall off a cliff. There's plenty of these gold nugget things which can be used as currency at shops, but also charge your ape out meter, allowing you to go Super Saiyan when the meter is charged. There's a lot of stuff to collect, and a big part of Bananza is that classic 3D platformer loop where you have a checklist of things to collect and then you just go and do that. What's a little different here, I think, is the fact that each of these levels have a beginning, middle, and end, with a main goal to accomplish before you move on to the next area. This is not like being dropped onto a Mario map where your goal is to collect enough stars to unlock a new area. Here, there is a problem with the water and you need to unclog the drain so you can speak to a character who then, lets you through to the next zone. Or you're going through a mine-themed level and there's a boss at the end, and completing that boss lets you move on to the next level. Obviously, this is how most games work, but the point I'm making is that this is not just a collectathon in these big open-ended freeform maps. Progress is not about have you collected enough stuff. Progress is instead about have you completed the objective, and the things you collect along the way are just an incentive to get you exploring a little more. Now here is where I would typically talk about this level design and the sort of things you're doing in these levels, but it's kind of impossible to talk about that without first addressing the elephant in the room, the smashing. So, Donkey Kong Bananza actually begins with a very clever tutorial. The screen is all black and you see one prompt: punch. Big man himself appears sporting a new character design but the same lovable necktie, and after that you're in control. What transpires in that moment is exactly the same for everyone I've watched play this game, including myself. You just start punching everything, because
Basically everything is destructible, and you're immediately consumed by this mix of curiosity and bloodlust. It's like you want to see how much you can smash, and the more you learn that there's basically no limit to your smashing, you're like, oh yeah, well what if I smash this? And it turns out you can smash that too, and the cycle just keeps repeating over and over again. But look, there are some rules. DK can't smash through metal, he can't smash through concrete, at least early on. He can't smash through certain types of bedrock or certain built structures. You quickly get a sense of what is and what is not smashable, but the long and the short of it is that most of what you see can be reduced to pebbles, and that kind of power is instantly pretty intoxicating and addicting. It's also quite unique in the sense that most games do not permit this level of environmental destruction. Voxel games like Minecraft and Valheim do, but they're survival games and much slower paced. Deep Rock Galactic lets you do it, but that's a horde shooter. The Finals lets you do it, sort of, but that's a competitive shooter, and a really good one at that. Red Faction let you do it back in the day, but that was a really long time ago now. Platformers though, they are very much about creating very specific level design puzzles that you need to solve through traversal. Imagine then designing a platformer where the main character can just smash a hole straight through to the objective. Oh, and when he's not doing that, he can basically climb on any surface. You see how that might make for a very different flavor of platformer. And this is the magic that underpins this experience and makes it unlike anything else you would have played before. We call these games 3D platformers, and there's never been a more 3D platformer than this, since your ability to move through a level is almost unconstrained by the geometry of that level. In fact, it's kind of helped by it, since rocks allow you to move straight up in a way that just wouldn't be possible if there was empty sky above you. Now imagine what this means for things like collectibles and secrets. No more are they reserved to only perch atop pyramids or behind waterfalls. Now they can be buried deep in the rock face behind that waterfall. So often when I was playing this, I was just smashing for smashing's sake, and all of a sudden I'd find a treasure chest or a banana or a fossil, or I'd suddenly drop into some big cavern that wasn't marked on the map, but it was there and it had some, puzzle challenge or a collectible, or maybe nothing at all. It was just a handy thoroughfare through to some other section of the map. Point is, the ability to smash entire new pathways through levels totally changes how these levels are designed and how we play them. And I guarantee you have never played a 3D platformer or any game quite like Donkey Kong Bananza. The destructibility of environments and what that means for level design is already a pretty strong hook, but Nintendo definitely aren't stopping there because they've just crammed so much fun shit into this package. They really did. Often you'll chance upon these portals that'll whisk you away to a little mini level thing. One time it's a combat challenge where you need to throw boulders at enemies before time runs out. Another time it's a climbing challenge. The next it's a full-blown 2D Donkey Kong level, complete with the classic exploding barrels. They're never more than a few minutes long, but they're always a really good time. I love them. Separate from that, there are all these little flourishes that Nintendo have added to this package. For example, did you know that there's an entire category of NPCs that's purpose-built for smashing? I'm not sure what sort of message Donkey Kong is sending to the kids here, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm into it. One of these NPCs, by the way, is the fashion vendor, since you can buy various furs, bow ties, and pants for Donkey Kong, and various outfits for Pauline. And that brings us to the lady, as she was once known before Nintendo gave her an actual name. You might remember Pauline as the singing lady from Mario Odyssey, and looking at the wikis, Pauline was apparently Mario's first love interest and his ex-girlfriend. I do wonder if it gets a little awkward whenever she, Peach, and Mario are in the same room, but whatever. Anyway, this is young Pauline, and you unlock her fairly early in the game. She perches on your back like Kazooie, and she does a whole bunch of stuff. Her main job is to sing songs that will break certain seals, allowing you to open specific doors, but more regularly, make enemies vulnerable. You'll sometimes enter areas where enemies are covered in this purple stuff, making them invulnerable, and the only way to damage them is to first dispel the seal using Pauline's song. When playing single player, you control when Pauline sings, and this seal breaking thing is basically all she can do, but in co-op, it's a very different story. When a second player is controlling Pauline, she's able to send out voice-based projectiles that manifest as whatever substance she is copying. So you see that cursor on screen? That's player 2. You see how there's a word above it? That's the material that player 2 could copy if they wanted to. When they do that, Pauline can now throw out projectiles made of whatever that substance is. So if she's throwing out concrete, she can then smash things that DK couldn't smash alone, or she could throw out things like sand or grass to add geometry to a level rather than just taking it away. Interestingly, the projectiles she throws out have their own physics, so if I throw something at the same time, then our two projectiles can smash into each other, cancelling them out depending on what we're throwing. The co-op mode is actually a massive game changer in terms of game difficulty. Pauline can do things that Donkey Kong can't, and her ability to throw projectiles made of concrete made this particular boss battle a cakewalk, where I imagine it would have been much trickier were I doing it alone. So in a way, I do feel like the co-op mode here is kind of kids mode, because I don't think adults would enjoy just being the person who's spamming out overpowered projectiles over and over again. And I also think that someone doing all of that work makes playing Donkey Kong less fun, because there's just less for him to do. So I don't think adults will really dig this, pun intended, but for kids, it honestly couldn't be more perfect, because it makes what might be a fairly tricky and complex 3D platformer infinitely more accessible. There's so much more, by the way, from the music to the characters I met, to the minecart boss encounter, to the forest level that saw me hurling onions to build bridges to new areas. It's just non-stop madness and non-stop creativity. It sounds cliche, but it's genuinely a smile a minute, because Nintendo were just looking to cram as much weird, fun stuff into one package as they could, and that makes Donkey Kong Bonanza feel a little messier than your average Nintendo platformer. But when it comes to Donkey Kong, being a little messy is kind of the point, I think. So all of this is great, but there are two technical issues I want to flag. The first is frame rate. Now I will clarify that this is an in-development build and that performance may improve when the game launches later this month, but this is the second time I've played Donkey Kong Bonanza, and both times I came away noticing how often the frame rate would drop as you smash through the environment, particularly when you're in larger open areas. You'd have no doubt seen some of those frame drops during this footage already. It's not terrible, but the drops are frequent enough to be noticeable for sure. On the one hand, it's a bummer that a newly launched next-gen Nintendo handheld already seems to be hitting its performance cap and delivering sub 30F performance at the very start of a generation. I agree with that, for sure. However, I continue to judge Nintendo games in the context of what they are and the hardware they're being played on. This is a pretty wildly ambitious 3D platformer that is really tearing up the rulebook when it comes to level design in this genre. In order to do that, the team committed to this voxel-like technology that is surely extremely CPU intensive, and they did it on a device that's pretty CPU capped. So yeah, there are frame drops, absolutely. They are gonna bother some people, absolutely. Me personally though, I'm far more interested in and appreciative of this game's ambition and innovation than I am hung up on its technical shortcomings, especially given that I'm playing this on a handheld that is naturally going to be significantly less performant than a PS5 or PC. So that's one issue. The other is camera, and this has historically been a pretty big issue with 3D platformers until this issue was effectively solved forever in like the Wii U era, when developers had had enough practice making this type of game that they knew all the little tricks needed to deliver a smooth camera experience. Camera issues return here in Donkey Kong Bonanza for a very obvious reason. When the level itself is being terraformed at such a rapid pace, and when Donkey Kong is moving around that space so quickly, it becomes almost impossible for the camera to smoothly track him. As you smash through rock, the camera will often whip in or out based on some piece of geometry that was there a moment ago but now isn't. When DK suddenly drops down into a new hole he's created beneath him, the camera needs to quickly pull in to keep a view of him. There are plenty of other examples I could give, but the overall sensation of playing Bonanza can feel quite frantic because of how quickly DK moves, because of how much destruction he's capable of, and because of how quickly the camera is whipping around in an attempt to give you a clear view of the action. Now, to be clear, it's never bad in the sense that you'll like die or make mistakes because of camera issues. It's more about the fact that you're just more aware of the camera than you might otherwise be in a modern 3D platformer. For what it's worth, I think the camera is doing an admirable job, since it's almost always giving a clear view of what's going on, but the speed at which this camera shifts and zooms is so quick that I suspect it might be a little distracting and overwhelming for some. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is that all of the levels in Donkey Kong Bonanza happen underground. Even when you see sky above you, it's not sky, I guess it's something else apparently. The whole game is actually a journey to the center of the earth, since it's only there that Donkey Kong and Pauline can have their greatest desire granted to them, which assumedly is reach the surface, but I'm sure the story has a few more twists and turns in store for us. It's yet another example of how weird and surprising and innovative and unique Donkey Kong Bonanza is shaping up to be. It's predicated on a destruction mechanic that we've never seen before in a game like this. It's starring a Donkey Kong who is redesigned and a lot sillier than the DK we're used to. He's paired up with a child songstress who, when playing in co-op, can use her voice to hurl projectiles made up of whatever substance she recently scanned. You're smashing the NPCs you meet to bits and digging massive holes straight through the center of entire levels just because you feel like it. I'm going to be very interested to see how this one is received, because as I alluded to earlier, this feels very different from your typical Nintendo platformer, or most platformers really. I mean, take Astrobot for example. It felt so clean and precise, and it had this steady, almost metronomic pacing. In contrast, Bananza feels bursting with kinetic energy, and whenever it moves, it doesn't do it slowly or subtly, it explodes. It explodes like the rock beneath DK's fists, and as the debris scatters and the land instantly transforms and the camera whips around to take it all in and DK grunts in exertion, there's this feeling in you that's much more heightened than what platformers are typically shooting for. It's a more instantaneous game than what Nintendo typically produces. So often their games are about watching and thinking and practice, but here it's just like, smash it and see what happens. Just like the like button on this video. Sorry, that was a really cheesy segue. I couldn't help myself. That is the end of the video. I am done. If you have any more questions, then do leave them below and I'll try to answer them when I do the full review later this month. For now, thank you for watching and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.
For years now, Squarespace has been the very best in the website creation business. Their tools were second to none, making it super easy to create a website no matter your experience with building websites. You could be a total beginner and Squarespace's tools would let you create a professional looking website in mere minutes. Well, Squarespace just took things to a whole new level. Their all-new design intelligence framework leverages their 2 decades of experience in website creation to give even more tools to shape the website of your dreams. Not only can you select from and customize their super flexible design templates, you can also now provide prompts that allow you to refine the tone of what is written on your website. Just type in what you'd like to communicate and then select what sort of tone you'd like it to have, like playful, funny, professional, etc. Squarespace will then refine your words so it sounds and reads just right. This same technology can assist in writing product descriptions, blog posts, or mailouts. It's super helpful if you're not a native English speaker or you're just looking for some inspiration for how to word things better. That's not all though. Squarespace Payments takes all the work and hassle out of managing payments on your website. It's really quick and easy to get set up with, and it gives your customers tons of ways to pay, knocking down one of the barriers that might stop you from getting a sale or a booking. Squarespace isn't just about the front-end experience though, it's also got all the back-end stuff you need to make sure your website is surfaced in search. Every Squarespace website supports sophisticated SEO tools that are just as easy to use as everything else Squarespace offers, meaning you can be sure that the customers who are looking for you can find you. There's so much more that Squarespace offers, so if you'd like to check it out for yourself, you can visit squarespace.com to try it for free, and if you want to get serious, visit squarespace.com/skillup to get 10% off your purchase of a website or a domain name. A big thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring the video, and thank you for watching it.